Now I'd like to discuss some items that are not contained in the kit and could be. There's a lot of items that I don't have in my kit. There's other items that are not the most necessary and they could be eliminated or whittled down. So there's survival is like a very creative and adaptive thing. There's not just one way to go about it. So this is just to acknowledge that and to offer alternatives for people with other priorities. Maybe you could substitute another item with in the kit with an item on this list. So let's get into it. The first thing which I really want to add is antiseptic. Um, Basically, having your wounds clean, I can't stress the importance of that more. So you don't want to get caught in the woods with a dirty wound without antiseptic. Very plain and obvious. The next item is toilet paper or something to wipe with in the woods. A lot of people, I believe, they forget to bring something to handle that. So you can use wet naps or you can use those moist towelettes that expand when you put them in water. It's like a little tablet. A saw is also a very useful item. Some people consider that one of their top tier items. I don't because I often substitute it with an axe. I do have a saw. It's a bow saw. A lot of people like their silky folding saws, but they're great and it's so useful to have in a kit. Very, very convenient, and it makes working with wood much faster and simplified and reduces weight if you're not carrying an axe. But personally, I don't use one all the time, so that's just not for me. But you might have a different opinion. Another thing I would add to this is a survival reference, and the one I would choose, I actually have it, and I've read a lot of it. It's Morse Kohansky's book Bushcraft. I think it's the best survival wilderness living book out there, certainly for bushcraft, and it contains a lot of information on various topics like knife craft, axe craft, making different fires, shelters. Very, very, very useful. And it contains lots of illustrations. The guy knew his stuff. So I definitely consider at least that book if you had to choose one. There's plenty of great books around and other references on wild edibles and tracks and stuff like that. Another thing would be fish hooks. So in the province I'm in, you can't use barbed fish hooks, unfortunately. I would bring them anyway because in a survival situation, you're not going to care. You'll want to sustain yourself. A lot of mammals, at least in the region I'm in, they don't contain a lot of fat. You can get a lot of fat off like porcupines and beavers, but and bears. But for other things like deer and a lot of birds, and squirrels, rabbits, mice, they're not that I want to eat a mouse, but they're all very lean, and you can actually get very sick from not having the right fat content and giving yourself too much of an abundance of protein. So fish can sustain you in that way. A lot of fish have enough fat to sustain life. So definitely bring some fish hooks, and you can rig together a fishing pole with like the inner strands of your paracord as line, and yeah, just craft that in the bush. Another thing would be a better pot, and I usually do I do bring a better pot with me, and it's actually right over here. This one is excellent. It's a variant it's from Stanley, so it's similar to that backpacker's standard cookware, the Stanley Adventure Camp cook set or whatever. So it has a locking out handle, just like that. You can see it contains much, much more volume than my 24-ounce cup here. It's also stainless steel, which is great, and they even throw in like cutting boards and a few other items and some bowls. So really, really great, and especially if I'm cooking for more than just me and the bush. I basically chose it because it's bigger, and it's not too much more expensive than that 24-ounce cook set, but this is great. So next, gloves. I usually do have gloves with me, but I believe they're contaminated right now with just I've been outside with them, and with the pandemic and whatnot, I've cut them separate from my other stuff and from other people in my family, but I do definitely bring gloves with me. It's very useful for if you're swinging the axe a lot and getting a lot of shock to your hands. The gloves will absorb that shock. They keep your hands warm in the winter. Obviously, reduced chance of getting slivers, lots of different things. And you'll get a lot of calluses if you're working in the woods a lot. So yeah, gloves is super, super high priority. And use gloves. Make sure you have enough gloves for all year round. Eye protection, I do include that now, so disregard this. I don't need to go get more eye protection. Sleeping bag, that's probably your third most important item in the kit. Third or fourth, following the knife, paracord, and a pot. Um, super, super, or water container. Very, very important. Make sure you have a sleeping bag that's rated for where you're going to be camping or settling. Uh, yeah, I do have a sleeping bag that's -40 rated, but I'm not bringing it here because it obviously doesn't fit in this bag. Okay, next up we need really, really good outerwear. So a good jacket, um, especially that's water resistant or something, a good pair of boots, and a poncho. And make sure you're equipped for um, the where you're going to be going outside. Different climates call for different protective clothing, so definitely consider that. Poncho is super lightweight and very, very easy to throw in your kit if you need to. The last thing I would choose invariably, basically, is food. Always have some food with you. So if that's food you can eat right away, like out of a jar of peanut butter or some trail mix, whether that's just nice things like having coffee and soup mix, or whether you're getting the bulk of your calories from it, like in which case I would choose, for example, rice and dried beans, because it's a whole meal together, or bannock mix just to give you that pure carbohydrates and your calories. There's lots of different ways of going around the food. These are some ones I recommend. Jerky is great, canned fish is great, canned meat's great, lots of different things, but I would take note if you're going to do the rice and dried beans approach. It is really, really intensive for cooking time. So you're going to spend a lot of time dealing with those beans, and if you don't, they're toxic. They can contain not ricin. I can't remember, but basically, yeah, dried beans are not good to eat undercooked. It's very unsafe, but they make for great survival food. So anyway, those are just some ideas, but bring some food with you and make sure you have stuff to season it with too if it's pretty basic food. Like bring some salt, bring some spices, sugar, bring some oil, especially if you're going to be frying something. Oil is good to have. Yeah. And I like bringing peanut butter just around with me even if I'm at school so I can substitute it for a meal. I get a lot of weird looks, but it's the truth. It's so good. And I use the peanut butter that doesn't spoil, so use the fake stuff. Stuff that's like high in sugar and high in sodium and all that. That's made out of mainly hydrogenated oils because it won't spoil at room temperature after you open it, whereas like a real thing of crushed peanuts will. So hopefully you're not allergic, and so that's a good option for you. These are some items that it would be nice to have, but I don't think are necessary in my kit, but they might be some alternatives you want to consider. The first is a strop, which is great for maintaining the edge of your blade. I have one, but it's just rather large, so I don't include it. Second is a secondary water container. I think I probably will just bring a plastic water bottle with me as well, so I can have one container in which to boil dirty water. Then once it's clean, I pour it and transfer it into the clean water container, so I don't have to worry about contaminating my clean water, or relatively clean. Actually, I didn't write it down, but I would definitely bring bleach as well. Bring like very cheap, standard no-name brand bleach. Just for further purifying water too, for other kinds of toxins that could be in there that boiling won't take care of. The next thing is candles. Survival candles are great. I don't really use them, so I won't go into them. A better compass and a map of your area. Like orienteering is super important, obviously. A trowel, that's a common tool used by backpackers. So if you're doing your business in the woods, it'll just help you. It'll make it faster and more convenient for you to bury all of your stool in the ground. A slingshot's useful if you know how to use it and you're willing to eat small game that doesn't require a license or whatever. Slingshot's great. I don't really know how to use it that well, so I don't. I'd bring a spoon and usually I do bring a spoon with me. I just forgot to demonstrate it today, so but make sure you have a spoon, or else you'll need to carve one. Um, because you really do want to be boiling your food if it's a survival situation. Um, Boiling kind of besides vegetables or whatever with meat, and you'll get everything out of it. And you'll want a spoon obviously to drink that after. Marlin spikes are great for undoing knots with your paracord, although I don't think it's totally needed because the outer sheath of this is very smooth, and it gets undone pretty well even with the tightest knots. So, but it saves time, which is nice. But I don't live in an area with ocean, so I don't typically have to tie a lot of knots you'd use a marlin spike for. The last thing is medical super glue. If you get cuts on your hands, you're gonna feel them every time you do something. So it might be nice to have like one of those like new skin type products that just seals over temporarily, or some super glue that'll just ensure your wound stays closed while you need to use that part of your body, and you won't have to worry about it reopening. So I would definitely consider that more seriously. So I'm sure you can see this isn't a perfect kit here. There's a lot that it could still use, and there's a lot of alternative ways to go about it. Let me know in the comments what you would change about it, what you think I should change about it. But I just thought I have a little bit of knowledge in this area, and I hope it can help somebody narrow down what they'd like in their kit. There's certainly ways to pare down the dollar value of these items. This is a more expensive knife than I started with, and I can cover that in another video. Paracord's relatively expensive, but you can bring twine, you can bring bank line, other stuff, but paracord is just great for that strength. That's a more expensive sharpener than you need. You can get plenty of just cheap, ceramic rods or something like that. And yeah, but I would definitely, if you have to spend, I would spend on getting a knife that's like decent or whatever. Like, doesn't have to be very expensive, but a Mora knife works great. I would definitely get something to boil water in, or a metal water container. And yeah, bring some cordage, doesn't really matter. So that's my piece of kit. Oh, and for an axe, I would just honestly use used axes, because that's what I've been doing for a long time. I've never bought a dedicated axe. Just get experience grinding the edge down with a file. Oh yeah, that's another. Maybe you might want to bring a file like I did and make this shoddy sheath with it. Yeah, so just use used equipment and build skills rather than just accumulating gear. So that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great day, guys. Bye.